What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is part 3 of the MyNBA setup. It's going to be a fire video, so let's just get right to it. What's good, Sim Gamers? I'm King Sim Kits, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so, man. We've already covered parts 1 and 2, and this one is by far my favorite, man. We get to really dig in deep and prepare for our association. As you can see here on the rundown, we're covering pretty much everything that's going to affect what you see and do on the floor, as well as season progression. And to get jump started, the first thing we must do is know our personnel. I spend a lot of time getting familiar with their badges, with their attributes, and this just gives me the edge to get creative with different lineups, rotations, and putting players in their best position to perform well. Getting into it, we're going to talk about the coaching system and how, believe it or not, all these little things really do matter when it comes to the team chemistry and how consistent they'll play within the right coaching system. So in the middle, from top to bottom, you have the system, which your players are currently in. You have your starting lineup on the floor, and then you have the rating of that system that they're all playing in together. To the right of that, you see the description where it lays out pretty much what the system is all about. And to the left, you have your coach, of course, and his preferred system, his ratings, etc. You can also change up the look of your lineup on the floor by switching the players. You can see how that affects the rating of the system, proficiency, and also how well that player will be within that system amongst the other players. And this allows me to play around with different lineups. It helps me create a balancing act on the floor. So now we're going to segue into rotations, and we're going to select all teams right here. This just means globally our rotations will be the same against every team we play. And this is our classic rotation window. We all know how to use this, adjust the minutes from left to right, and pretty much gets the job done on the fly. But to make things more realistic, we're going to press start and head to the rotation timeline window. And for those who don't use this often, I recommend setting it into paint mode. It's just an easier way to drag the minutes across the timeline for a specific player. And this gives you the ability to stagger your player substitutions and not have to see about 4 or 5 players come in and out at one time. And now you can be really creative with your rotations. You can better mimic what you see in real life and also better manage fatigue during the game this way. Now let's say we have the Chicago Bulls next on our schedule and we want to do a specific rotation for this game. We have D Rose coming back to his hometown, and I might want to give him some more minutes just to show some love, and I'll bring him in right at 6 minutes in the first quarter. And Kemba's still my starter, but I'm going to stagger him and Rose pretty much evenly throughout the game. Let's say Rose has been on a good streak lately, and I might just let him close out this game. The energy's just right. It's in the air, so the rotation timeline makes a huge difference. I recommend it. Give it a shot. Next up, we have the on-the-fly lineups. Pretty self-explanatory. You have your bench, tall, quick, 3-point lineups, and more to utilize in-game depending on the situation. Very useful. I recommend it. Next, we're going to be talking about the coaching playbooks, my favorite thing to do before I start a season. So let's get right into it. The middle shows every play within your playbook. You have the play type on the right column and the name of it on the left. To the right of the menu, you have the total number of plays and the number of play types underneath. And lastly, to the top left, you can see the corresponding play in motion, which is very helpful in selecting your plays. And to do that, we have to hit triangle to view the play catalog. And here's where we can see every single play in 2K. And this is what I mean by getting very creative with your association. You can really mix it up by selecting the right plays and putting your players in the best position to executing them. And to add new plays, just select it from here. And let's say we have too many 3-point plays and we want to add some mid-range. We can just simply remove it, or we can just replace it by going back into the play catalog. Then we just scroll over to mid-range, we go down and select the one that we want, confirm it, and there you have it. That play is now in your playbook. The next step is actually assigning these plays to your players. In the middle, you've got your actual players. Then you have priority, which will be the play groups that you will see in order to assign to each player. Now, after we set our priorities or play groups for each player, pay attention to the right side of the screen where you have your play names listed. This is how it will look when you pull up your play call screen in game. And I make the effort to set up that play group list so that I'm not wasting the shot clock time looking for a play that I can't find. I typically set up the priorities for a player based on how they play or how I plan to use them. And in Randall's case, I mostly get them going early in the post. Next, we have the most crucial part before actually playing a game, and that's coach game planning. Just like your rotations, you have the option to set your game plan for all the teams or for every individual team, which is what I do before every matchup. Now, let's say we got the Bulls coming up again, and we want to put our best foot forward by putting our players in the best position to win in their matchups, preparing for our opponent's tendencies, and creating that high probability of getting the win. Now, here you see a plethora of options, man, where you can change up so many different things when it comes to setting up your matchups. And what's really helpful is the description on the right side, where if you may not have the highest basketball IQ, you can just read the explanation on what the setting actually does. And 2K used to have the X's and O's and the arrow art displaying what it actually does, but I would love if they brought that back one day. And the cool thing is that once you set this up one time, you don't have to do it again, only if you choose to. Let's say I play the Bulls again next week and Lonzo Ball is hurt. All I have to do now is just make some small adjustments and I'm good to go. And I make sure I do this before every single game I play. Even if I already have the settings set up, I just make sure that things are refined. Especially if I took an L the first time, I really know what adjustments to make for the next time I see him. And I think I'm gonna do a whole video on just game planning altogether, just how I go through my steps and how I do it for my next NBA season. So yeah, just stay tuned for that. And again, this is a great feature. I don't know how you play on these sliders without game planning, but that's what I do. I recommend it and it's a must-have, man. Next, we'll go to the training menu underneath the preparation hub, and we're gonna select training schedule. Now, I have a lot of fun with this. I think this is a really cool feature, one of my favorite things, because it's one thing to play well on the floor and see a player progress, but it's actually another thing to curate that training and see it reflected on the floor. Now, I'm a fan of how they set it up this year. You can have up to 3 activities per day, and based on what your team needs are, whether it's team chemistry, progressing certain attributes, or just overall rest for your team, it's all done here. And I'll tell you, it really does make a difference. It's a long season, and these little things really do compound over time. You have a nice calendar here. You can see each workout for each day. Underneath, you see the training type. Then you see training details, which gives you intensity, fatigue, and injury risk, which is very important because your players can get injured in practice now. So tread lightly with how high you set your intensity. And training effects simply shows you what attributes will be trained. Again, I simply do this maybe a couple of days at a time, maybe 3 or 4, and I just kind of go along as I play. So I just really like to keep it simple. Now that we covered team training, we have individual training, and man, this is a deep mode. We can't act like we don't have every single thing to have a deep experience. I just needed to give 2K some props on that. Now, the main thing I'm looking at in this menu is the focus column, the load management, and fitness. Now, if we select underneath the focus column, we can change the skill training focus, which is actually how that particular player will train. You'll see a bunch of archetypes, and it's best to fit the proper archetype to that player's style. For example, with Burks, he's a tweener between a shooting guard and small forward. So if you toggle between both in those archetypes, you'll see that he actually trains a lot better being a small forward. So for the best results, I would take some time, especially for players that you're developing, and finding them the best archetype for them to progress through during the season. And finally, we have player mentorship. I really like this feature. All the things that 2K have added over time has just made this mode even better. So with team training, individual training, now you have player mentorship where you can actually progress these young guys even further through badges. And the way it works is you assign a young guy like McBride to a veteran like Kemba Walker, and you can select up to 3 badges that he will pass along to McBride. And the higher the badge, the faster Miles will be able to develop it. The lower the badge, it might take a little bit more time for him to get to bronze, but you can see that on the chart to the bottom left. And one thing you must know is that an older player, let's say like Taj Gibson, you can't teach an old dog new tricks in a sense. So if I try to assign Randall as his mentor, for one, he's 10 years younger, and he'll be totally ineffective in mentoring him. And it also goes by position. So Julius Randle can't really mentor Miles McBride in a sense better than Kemba Walker. That'll also be less effective. So play around with this, have fun. It really does work and it's dope. All right, guys, that's it for part 3. I had a lot of fun doing this one and we covered a lot. You can look forward to part 4 coming up. We hit the trade deadline. I'm about to start my next MyNBA season. Look out for that series. Join the Discord. The link is in the description below. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like and comment below. I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Peace out.